Hey everybody! No, I'm not working on the car this week. This is my swimming pool, and if you're like me, you cover your pool over the winter, and then when you come back in the springtime, you have this nice green water, algae-filled, dirty green water on top of the pool cover. And you can either try and pump all of this water off of the cover and then refill the pool, or you can do like I do. I filter this water. I get it looking crystal clear, and then I pump it under the cover. So how do I do it? Well, that little bucket over there, that 5-gallon bucket, is a sand filter that I've made. And I've been using it for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. So I decided to rebuild the sand filter. This bucket's kind of old and it's starting to get brittle. So I'll just build a new one, and I'll show you how to do it. So let's build a sand filter. Okay, so before we get started, I just wanted to show you what it is that we're going to build. So what you can see here is we just have a 5-gallon bucket and lid. The lid has a garden hose ball valve, and I have a brass garden hose fitting. I'll show you what all these fittings are. The other thing that we have, obviously besides the 5-gallon bucket, is we have a PVC pipe inside here with some holes drilled in it. I'll take the sand out and show it to you. I have a barbed fitting, and then this 1-inch, I think it's 1-inch clear plastic hose. It's about 6 feet long. You're going to need a 5-gallon bucket with a lid that fits on it. Get a lid that's made to go with your bucket, and get one that snaps on nice and tight. You need a watertight seal between the lid and the bucket. You're going to need some plumber's putty. Here's the little container that it comes in. To connect the garden hose to the lid of the bucket, we're going to use two things. We're going to use this female hose adapter. It's just a brass fitting. It's internally threaded on this side, and then it's externally threaded on this one. And the other thing that you're going to need is a plastic bulkhead. What this thing looks like is it's a plastic threaded piece. It also has this sort of loose hard plastic washer. This is really hard. It's not like rubbery or soft. There's a rubbery soft one here that comes off. And then this thing is externally threaded, internally threaded, and then it has this big gigantic nut that actually goes on backwards, and it even has a little arrow on there that says tighten, and you have to turn it the wrong way. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this plastic bulkhead adapter to attach our garden hose adapter to the lid of the bucket. Then I can take the female hose adapter, thread that into it. And it goes in there. Make sure when you buy these that you buy the compatible sizes for each other. This plastic bulkhead adapter is a 1/2-inch FIP by 1 3/8 male threaded shank. So that's the one that fits. Just open them up in the store and make sure that your parts fit together. You're also going to want a garden hose ball valve. So basically all this is it's a valve, has this 90-degree turn fitting on the end of it, and you can use this to turn on and off the water flow through the valve. Your garden hose hooks up to it, so you thread the end of your hose into here, and this end looks just like the end of a regular garden hose. So we're going to mount that to the top of the bucket, and that's going to be our valve that we use to control this flow of the water into the filter. Two other things you're going to need. You're going to need this barbed hose adapter, and this you get again at Lowe's. It's got an internal thread on it, and then it's got the external little ridges on here, barbs they call them, and that's what you're going to use. That's going to stick out of the bottom of the bucket, and we're going to use that to attach our discharge hose to. We're going to shove our discharge hose over the end of this, put a pipe clamp on it, and that's how the water is going to get pumped back underneath the cover. You're going to need some 1-inch PVC. This piece is obviously, it's got to be short enough to fit inside the bucket, so just measure it. On the end of it I have an end cap that I have PVC cemented on there, and on the other end I've cemented on a threaded adapter, threaded fitting, and our barbed hose connector threads into that fitting on the end of the pipe. So when you go to the store, make sure that your 1-inch fitting with the thread on it fits onto your barbed adapter. You know, basically this is going to stick out of the bottom of the bucket, and then you're going to want to hook a hose up to it. I suppose you could just try and attach the hose to these threads, but I found this piece in the hose fitting section, and it goes on there and it gives you a better, nicer connection for that. What you can see on the bottom here, this is what you haven't seen yet. I have a bunch of holes drilled in here. These are about 7/16, 7-inch diameter, whatever. You know, just get a large drill bit and then just clamp this thing in there. And I've drilled, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 12 holes in the bottom of this pipe. You can see that they are along the bottom edge only. So if I turn the pipe over, the top end is solid. And so if you make a reference mark with your eye, this barcode, I'll spin this thing around. You can see there's one row of holes. The next one, you can pretty much see both rows of holes at the same time. And spin it back around. Here comes the barcode again. So those holes are along the bottom of the pipe, kind of close together. You know, it's not like they're on the opposite sides of the diameter of the pipe. You don't want that. You want 2 rows of holes down along the bottom of the pipe. And that's where the water is going to come in, you know, when it's trying to leave the bucket. Obviously, you got to get the water in to get it out the end of the hose. So drill those things up and then glue on your fittings. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a hole in the lid of our bucket for our brass fitting to go through. And like I said, the way this thing works, these threads are going to stick up out of the top of the bucket. So we only need a hole big enough for these threads to stick out, and we'd like to have it be nice and round. So what I did was I went to the hardware store and I got this copper fitting. It's like a splice connector, and it fits right over the end of that. Pretty nice. It's got a little bit of wiggle room, but not too much. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this 1-inch piece of copper, we're going to heat it up with a torch, and we're going to use that to melt a hole through the lid. And I'm going to make the hole in the flat part on this lid. There's a lot of rings and things on here, and I want to get it into a part of the lid where it's a smooth surface, so that when I put on the bulkhead adapter and those washers and things, I can try and clamp it up nice and tight, and there's not a lot of lines and ridges running through it with places for the water to leak out. Hopefully that's hot enough by now. And let's get it in there before it cools off too much. There you go. Boom. Nice round hole. There it is. Perfect. Here's the old bucket. It's got the old hole in the bottom of it. That's the next step. And this one is centered, well, looks like 2 1/4 inches up from the bottom of the bucket. Alright, so similar thing for the discharge pipe. Now I think this is a 1-inch, maybe that's a 3/4 inch piece of copper. I think this is a 1-inch copper pipe. And the only problem I have with this is that it is a little bit too small. You can see it doesn't fit over the end. Let me get my hand out of the way. It doesn't fit over the end of this plastic fitting, but I don't have a piece of copper here that's big enough. So I'm just going to use this, and if I have to wiggle it around a little bit to make the hole a little bit bigger, I'll just do that. I like to use the copper because it heats up fast. You know, if you had iron or steel or something like that, it would take longer to heat up. Okay, so there's the hole. Now I know I have to sort of wiggle it around a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. Try and do it uniformly. And let's not go crazy with it. Let's make sure that it's the right size before you make it too big. I know the pipe goes in the other way, but the hole doesn't care which side you shove it in from. Whoops. Yeah, that actually, it's kind of snug, but I think I can, thread the pipe through it, so I'm just going to leave it there. That's good enough. So I'll just take a little knife and just cut those little, sort of like burrs off the edge of the hole here. You don't have to get too carried away with this. All right, now we'll put the pipe in. So now I'm gonna put the pipe inside the bucket. Obviously the threads stick out, and it's a little snug, but I can just screw it, thread it out. It actually works really good. I'm glad I didn't make that hole super big. And of course, what you want to make sure is that you have the holes pointing down. I think that's pretty much it. And there you go. This is what it looks like on the inside. I got the pipe in there. I don't know if you can see. There you go. That's better. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the plumber's putty and we're going to pack it around that fitting on the inside of the bucket to make sure that it's watertight. Okay, so here it is. This is plumber's putty, and it is literally just what it says. It's putty. It's like kind of like modeling clay or Play-Doh or something like that. So I probably don't even need. I'll just cut this in half and start with that. And I'm just gonna mix it up and make sure that it's pliable and soft. And I'll make like a sort of like a rope out of it, and I'll just pack that in a circular fashion around the inside of the fitting in the bucket. I'm just going to put this in here like this, and then just put it in there, and then I'll just pack it around the fittings to get it nice and tight. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So there it is. I've got it all packed in. The point is to just make a seal between the plastic and the bucket. The water is going to push on this plumber's putty and actually try and push it out of the hole, so it actually, the water makes the seal better simply by the fact that the water is trying to leave through the hole in the bucket. So now we're ready to do the lid. So the goal is to have this brass hose adapter through the lid of the bucket like that, with the big side on the top, so that I can take the ball valve and screw that into the end of this. And then you can screw your garden hose into the top of the ball valve. With this brass piece through the bucket, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my O-ring or my flat washer, all the dirt off of it, stretch that around so it's like that. And it has this hard one. I'll put the hard one on there. And then you can see this is just it's like a plug, and it's got a nice big flat flange on it. So we'll just screw these guys together. I might even just get a pair of pliers here. Let's give it a good crank. This is really nice and tight. It's a good connection. I don't think any water is going to get through that. Now I can take my ball valve. And, let me put a little Teflon tape on this guy just to make sure that it's sealed up nice and tight. I got two of these ball valves. One's a new one, one's an old one. This is the old one. And just to show you what's going on here, this one it won't actually thread in nicely. You can see it's going on crooked. Not because it's not threaded right. You run a lot of chlorine through this filter in order to clean up all that algae. And the chlorine just tears up all this plastic stuff. Here's the new one. The new one goes in beautiful. So you just be aware that you probably aren't going to get more than 1 or 2 seasons out of this plastic stuff, just because of the harshness of the water that you're running through it. So now let's put the sand in the bucket. All right, so just the one thing that I want to watch out is that I keep my pipe fairly level. Mine it'll flop up and down a little bit in there. So when I first pour this first little bed of sand in, once we get the sand underneath the pipe, That'll keep it from moving anywhere. But we just gotta make sure initially that we don't have the pipe in there on an angle. And I guess the only issue I would have with that is it might make it leak out of the front of the bucket if it disrupts our seal there. And you see I got a little bit of rocks in mine. At first when I built this thing I had some like 3/8 inch gravel in there. I thought that it would need gravel underneath the pipe in order for the water to get up through the pipe, but it doesn't. The water goes right through the sand and the gravel, doesn't matter. The gravel will naturally work its way down to the bottom of this filter, so you don't have to worry about where it is in the sand. And like I said, you don't need that. You just need pool sand, filter sand. But this is what I have. And no, the sand does not come out of the end of the bucket. You don't pump sand into your pool. It doesn't. This is why you use filter sand. It locks together and makes a nice tight seal. So I'll just get the rest of that out and get it all packed in there nice. Alright, so now that I've got all of the sand into the filter, it's not the sand that takes the water from green to clear, it's chlorine. So I just use these chlorine tabs. These are the 3-inch chlorine tabs that you get for your chlorinator. And I'll put 3 of those in here. And these are what kills all the algae and all the other bugs and stuff in the water. Make sure you wear gloves when you handle these things. These are rubber lined gloves. This stuff is nasty on your skin too. And that's all you got to do. Oh, just one thing I forgot to do to attach this barbed hose fitting. Probably should do this before you put the sand in, because then you can hold the pipe on the inside when you tighten it up. I would suggest that you just hold the pipe and do it before you put the sand in. That way you don't have to worry about spinning the pipe inside the bucket.